Back to Bloom. Having good communication is key for a healthy relationship, but a lot of couples face hurdles because when there are issues in a relationship, many feel unheard, unsupported, invalidated, and unappreciated. Joining us today from McNulty Counseling and Wellness is Rachel DeStefano, a licensed mental health counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, and a master certified addictions professional. Welcome to Bloom, Rachel.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you again. So what would you say are some of the biggest roadblocks when it comes to communicating in any relationship?
Yeah, usually when couples come into my office, there's a couple main things that I almost expect to hear at this point. And like you kind of said in your opener, at least one or both individuals say something along the lines that I feel unheard, I feel unsupported, I don't feel seen. The other person doesn't really see me and what my struggle is, and what this does is this results in us feeling lonely. And this often stems from what I like to call a tendency to listen to respond and not listen to listen. So like for instance, right, we're having a conversation and like as you're talking, I've already come up with like 5 things I want to say back. I've got my rebuttal, I've got my reaction, right? And then I kind of jump in this like point of I'm right. What this does in a relationship though, when we're listening to react and we're not listening to the other person, is it makes it so that it's me against you and we're not a team. And it creates this kind of dynamic where we're trying to be right, we're not trying to make the other person feel heard. So one of the biggest roadblocks is an inability to listen and an inability to effectively communicate when we hear the other person.
Is there anything, because you're right, sometimes if you're in an argumentative state, you're right, the other person's probably not listening to most of what the other person is saying because they're getting ready for their own rebuttal.
Yes.
But what about if you're in a healthy relationship and you come across some roadblocks where you're like, I love my spouse, but they're just not meeting my need, or they're not understanding me on this one particular point. Are there ways to have a better delivery method when you're communicating?
Absolutely. So a lot of times when we communicate, we're not coming from a place of I. So we kind of get into the you defense where I'm saying like, you need to do this. And I might not be pointing my finger, but I might as well be, right? Because I'm already getting you to be on the defensive. So if I can implement what's called a talking boundary. So I might say, I feel hurt when you jump to giving me advice. What I need or I prefer is for you to listen, and when I'm open to a suggestion, I'll ask you. So if I can implement communicating from a place of I, and I can communicate from a place of emotion, like a place of vulnerability, not just a place of, you won't let me speak, but more so, I feel hurt. If I can come from that place of vulnerability, I deepen the communication, I deepen the connection, and I increase the chances that we're going to effectively have healthier conversations with each other.
Yeah, because you're right, because the feelings aren't right or wrong, they're just your genuine feelings.
Yes.
And you can't argue with feelings a lot of the time.
Yeah.
That's a really great piece of advice. Okay, so let's go along the line. So you started to say how I feel, and the person, the other person corrects, and then they fall back into the old habits. Then what?
So one of the other big tips that I give, and it's a really simple tip, but surprisingly it's really hard to implement, especially implement consistently, and that's what we call active listening. And so when I say it's simple, it just involves tweaking your communication ever so slightly. So we're adding just 1 or 2 more sentences. And what I mean by that is you finish talking, and before I jump into what I want to say, back into that rebuttal, right, I let you know what I heard. And this does a couple things. 1, it makes you feel like I'm listening. 2, it allows you to clarify and correct if I didn't hear you right, so it minimizes misunderstanding. And 3, it allows for pause. So we're both being a little bit more intentional in what we're saying, and we're not just jumping into that next thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then, maybe the less accusatory in your delivery and more just stay with the consistency of the feelings.
Yes.
We only have 30 seconds. Any other last minute advice, or do you think we covered it all?
I'd say the other huge thing is the way that I have a relationship with self impacts my relationship with you. So if I'm not listening to my needs, if I don't know my own emotions, if I'm betraying my own gut, then chances are my relationship with you is reflective. So I need to look in the mirror and change the way I talk to myself in order to change the way I talk to you.
Brilliant. That is brilliant. Thank you so much, Rachel. And for more information, you can visit McNultyCounseling.com. We'll be back with more Bloom right after this.